All right, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck. I'm along with my coworker Jordan Bianchi. We are Motorsports Drivers for the Athletic. We might be a little bit tired as it's quite late there. What are you? We're starting this at 1:30 a.m. Eastern time. You are at Atlanta Motor Speedway, Jordan. But you know what? The good news is we have adrenaline still going, probably, I hope, from we're running out. We're running out at this point.
Coffee is what I have.
Yeah. I ran out of coffee. I ran out of coffee a little bit ago. But from an electric race, electrifying race, that was a banger for sure. And I mean, I was just like, man, is this really that good? No, it just kept getting better and better.
Kept getting better and better and better.
I mean, look, this is so embarrassing, but I mean, because I was so down on this track. I was like, no, don't. Oh my God, Marcus Smith, what are you doing? Every race now, it makes I look more and more like an idiot because this is this NASCAR's best track, like legit.
Yes.
Oh,
we talk all of the time on this show on how great the intermediates are. You know, the Charlottes, the Kansases, maybe Vegas, just a little bit of lesser degree. Oh, we're so excited they're going to go there and they're going to put on a great show, and they do. Like Charlotte this year, the 600 was a terrific race. I'm sorry, I saw your stat: 50 lead changes in the spring race here, 46 tonight. Right? This is NASCAR's most competitive, interesting track. And I don't think you can watch this race tonight and sit there and say, oh, this is just a typical speedway, that kind of thing. Like, yes, I know there's luck involved. I know there was accidents, but these guys were wheeling it. They were fighting the track tonight. Like you could see how hard it was. This was a handling racetrack. This is old school Daytona-esque. And so, yeah, there's super speedway elements and you get circumstances, that kind of thing. But do not discredit what these guys did tonight. The moves that Brad Keselowski made at the end of the race, oh my goodness, we're going to get more into that. And then how Chase Elliott won this race. Like, these guys earned it tonight. This is a fantastic race, and this track consistently is one of the 2 or 3 very best on the circuit, hands down, every year since reconfiguration.
I mean, when we talk about how the super speedway package isn't good with the next gen car, certainly it's not. We're not talking about this track. I mean, this is what we are complaining about when we see Talladega races these days, right? Like, we're like, no, this is what we're looking for. Like, this is what we remember from, as you said, the glory days of Daytona. And it's just, I mean, this is all you could possibly want from a super speedway drafting style race. I mean, it's almost perfection. To me, it's like, I was really struck by a quote that I saw from Connor Zilic, after the race, where he says we were hardly wide open at all the whole race. So it's not just, foot to the floor, go around for lap after lap. I mean, they are driving the hell out of these things, and the runs they're like, remember there was that super speedway package where the runs were like too big.
Yeah.
And then now you in most super speedways, you can't get enough of a run on people a lot of times, but here it's like the perfect amount where, like, you're going to be able to pass somebody, but it's not massive to where you're just going to wreck everybody in front of you. You can decide to push somebody, or you can decide to try to make a move and it might stick, as Chase Elliott's move did at the end. And I don't know, it's all the elements are great. And Atlanta just keeps delivering it. I saw at one point in the replies on social media, somebody was going, it's probably about through stage 2, and somebody had tweeted, no, I just miss the old school Atlanta though, and all this stuff. And somebody goes, that's a 2022 argument. Like, nobody's missing the old school Atlanta at this point. Like,
no.
Like,
no. I talked to a fan who from England. He was a big Chase Elliott fan, so I guess he's very excited. But he's gone to a bunch of races and stuff, and he's like, I came here, I've never been here before. I would not have gone to old Atlanta. He's like, all those drivers did is, they hugged the bottom and they got spread out. And I'm like, I'm nodding my head. Like, I know drivers talk about old Atlanta and they've got this they revere it, but it just wasn't that exciting. I know you had some great finishes, but green flag to checkered flag, it didn't deliver consistently. It just did not. And this is much, much, much better than what old Atlanta used to be.
Well, we still don't know how this car would have raced there.
Sure,
Like it could have raced like it races at Kansas, which would have been great. But it's
maybe.
still hard to argue, even if it raced as well as it races at Kansas, it's still hard to argue with what the product that we're seeing race after race at Atlanta. I mean, the amount of lead changes, the amount of passing, it's just it's really thrilling. It keeps you interested the whole time. I mean, from the start of this race, I tuned into Carson Hocevar's in-car camera to start, right? Because I was just like, oh, he's starting 30th. He'll make some moves. And you know how sometimes it's like, well, even when other guys can't make moves, Hocevar's trying things. He goes all the way up into the top 10, but like it was really, really good racing for me, like right away, watching on his in-car, like right from the start of the race. And then it kept building, it kept getting better. Now, obviously, you had the massive, massive wreck that took out half the field, and that changed the dynamic of the race. We'll talk about that in a minute. But just the racing itself, regardless of who was still in it, I just thought it was super compelling. There was never a moment where you're like, all right, this is kind of like it just. I mean, this looks like a 3-hour, 40-minute race or something, and
Two red
yeah, there was
flags.
a lot of cautions and stuff, but still, I mean, it was like you weren't like, oh, I can't wait till this gets over. For me, anyway.
No, it didn't. There was no lulls. There was no moments where you're like, when is this going to pick up? What is going on here? You didn't see guys ride around. It seemed like every time there was always something going on, and even after that wreck, and you had the big wreck that knocked a ton of guys out of the race. You're like, okay, it's going to be one of those races, and it's like, man, the field is. How many cars are you going to have here at the end? Is it going to be like that
Mm-hmm.
Talladega race from like 9 years ago where there was about a dozen cars left, and you're like, oh my goodness, and it didn't. You didn't have that another big pileup like that, which was good because it would have really whittled it down. But you always had something going on. I don't think we had any green flag pit stops tonight either because of the way the cautions fell and everything like that. And so it was just good. It was compelling. It was interesting theater. And the fact is, what heightened the drama was that at one point after that wreck, there was only two drivers on the track, SVG and Kyle Larson, who had won races this year. Everyone else out there hadn't won this year, and most of the people running in the top 10 or so were in desperate need of a win for their playoffs lives. That just heightened the drama. It was like, whoa! It just this race went from being typical super speedway-esque race to whoa, this is like a nail biter because the stakes were already high and because of the potential of what it carried. And then it's like, whoa, now you get rid of all of the guys who've got wins this year or who felt good about their spot in the playoffs. And it just changed the whole complexion of it and really ramped up the intensity even more.
I totally agree, and I thought the best way to sum this up came from Eric Estep shortly after that wreck, and he said basically this feels like the All-Star Open. A whole bunch of guys who hadn't won a race, and they're all going for it, right? And I
Yeah.
was like, man, that is such a good way to describe this because and that's what sort of the magic of that race is, right? Like you get to see the focus on the spotlight on the guys who they haven't won in a while, or some of them never won, and you get to see him battle it out, and that was the case, and it was like, man, Larson wasn't really, he still had some damage, so he never really got up there. SVG ended up spinning, so he ended up finishing laps down. The only guy that finished on the lead lap of the top 21 cars on the lead lap was that had won a race this year was Kyle Larson. So yeah, I mean, you had it was, and as much as we talk about wild card races, I think this was a wild card race to the extreme. I mean, this was the wild card of wild card races because you're even a Daytona regular season cutoff, you're not going to have a situation like to this extreme where every winner this season except for one is taken out of the race. I mean, this was the cars that got taken out were so wildly, it was so tilted. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
You had three JGR cars gone. You had all four Penske cars who were obviously very, very fast and who are so good in these races. They're gone. That's seven cars right there that are, serious contenders.
Dude, it to me it was really compelling in the sense that you knew it represented an opportunity because it was either going to be a Chase Elliott or Tyler Reddick type who is already way up in the points but hadn't won yet. And so in that case, all the bubble drivers were like saying, if it's not going to be me, I hope it's them.
Yep.
Or you were going to have the Keselowski type, which you wouldn't normally think of him as an underdog type, but he was way far back in points, 30th in points coming into today. Or, somebody like Ricky Stenhouse Jr. or a Zane Smith or Eric Jones. And, they have gotten up there in points, but, somebody like that, who's going to leap some people, take a spot. Ty Gibbs, another great. Yeah, exactly. So ultimately the way it works out with Chase Elliott, who is now second in points, by the way, winning the race, those bubble drivers,
huge.
Oh my gosh.
It's huge. And that's the thing is we're sitting here talking about how this is a wild card race. And at the end of the day, for those guys, this is the best case scenario in a lot of respects, is that Chase Elliott wins, who's already theoretically locked in the playoffs because of the points and everything. And like, they're okay. So it doesn't shake up the bubble that much in that sense of, okay, there's one less points position now available. Now the standings got shook up because of everything that unfolded. But yeah, for those guys, this is a best case scenario, because if a Brad Keselowski would have won tonight, man, or honestly, even if an Alex Bowman would have won tonight to some degree, that would have shaken things up a little bit. And then that just, again, puts the clamps on the bubble even more and just squeezes them.
Yeah. I mean, you have 12 different winners now and only 4 spots are left. But again, aside from SVG and Josh Berry, everybody's in the top 16. So it's a fascinating. Let's look at the bubble really quick here. So you've got Tyler Reddick is plus 128. Seems relatively safe because unless there's a bunch of winners, that is what would knock him out. But Chris Buescher plus 52, Alex Bowman plus 39, Bubba Wallace plus 23, Ryan Preece minus 23, Eric Jones minus 49, AJ Allmendinger minus 59, Carson Hocevar minus 62. Anybody below the cut line at this point, it doesn't seem feasible that they could point their way in, because there's still going to be winners that move the line up at least
absolutely.
A couple. So really you look at, the difference between like Chris Buescher and Alex Bowman, which is 13 points, or Chris Buescher, I mean, I think Chris Buescher is the one where you're like, okay, maybe he gets that spot based on how things are still going. But, 2 road courses coming up next in Chicago and Sonoma. It's I wouldn't feel secure at all being on the points bubble unless you're Tyler Reddick. And so I think that this was, and everybody knew that, right? Like everybody knew that tonight that was still in it. And so I think that's another thing that made the racing so compelling.
It is. And then you look at how the schedule unfolds. You have Chicago, you have Sonoma, you still have Daytona out there, you still have Watkins Glen. So you've got 4 races out there where they're fairly wide open, the prototypical wild card tracks. And you just get the sense of there's probably going to be 2, 3 other winners emerging. I'd feel comfortable saying that. And if you look at a guy like Bubba Wallace and his season and the direction it's going, they've had speed, but they don't have the results to show for it. And they're going in the wrong direction. And it's just, they find themselves in a spot they seemingly find themselves in every year, where they're just sitting on the bubble. And you go back a year ago with Bubba Wallace, and in back-to-back weeks, Harrison Burton and Chase Briscoe win their races. And Bubba Wallace went from seemingly being in a decent spot to the wrong side of the cut line. Same thing with Chris Buescher. And it's just, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. You can have a good year and you can point everything, but if you cannot find a way to win a race, you leave your fate up to other people.
Well, Chase Elliott has now found a way to win a race. He snapped a 44 race winless streak. And once again, just as with Texas, when he won that Texas race and snapped another winless streak, you suddenly look at Chase Elliott and you go, huh, well, he is having a pretty good season. I mean, here's a guy who has currently his career best finish, average finish, 10.3. Here's a guy who has not finished outside the top 20 all year long. In fact, he has only finished outside the top 15 in 3 races this year. However, he doesn't lead a lot of laps and he lags behind his teammates overall and seemingly being close to wins, except for Alex Bowman. But suddenly you look up, we are halfway through the season as a whole after tonight. He's second in points. He's 37 points behind his teammate William Byron. Hendrick is 1, 2, 3. He's right with them. He went over Kyle Larson in points tonight. By the way, Kyle Larson has now not led a lap in 5 straight races. So it's look, he wanted to win, but he's been taking what the car gives him. He was aggressive tonight. For the people that say he's not aggressive enough, he made bold moves, I thought. And he played it perfectly at the end of the race. Alex Bowman obviously played a good teammate to him. But what does it mean now for Chase Elliott that he has broken through yet again, as he did at Texas a year ago, and he's back in victory lane?
It's fine, but to me, it's no different than Chase Briscoe a week ago. Like, you're expected to win, and it's not just win once. You're expected to do this again and again. And it's nice that you get a win. That's great. But the reality is guess how many stage wins that Chase Elliott has this year? Zero. He doesn't lead a lot of laps. It's great that you've got that average finish, and that is great in this regular season points format, 1 through 26. And if this was the old school playoff format, 1 through 10, or way back in the day, the 1 through 36 point system, Chase Elliott would be very, very good. And their average finish is very impressive. It's only 2 spots better than Kyle Larson, which blows my mind considering all of Larson's, issues he's had this year finishing races. But they don't lead a lot of laps. They don't have a lot of bonus points. And so we have seen time and time again in the playoffs, those bonus points are the lifeblood of whether you advance or whether you're eliminated. It has saved Elliott before. It has saved so many drivers before. And the reality is he doesn't have a lot. And so it's great that you have this consistency, but you're not doing the things, to me, in this format, they're indicative of winning a championship. And that is either winning a bunch of stages and getting a bunch of points and leading laps and putting yourself in contention, week after week. And if you put yourself in position again and again and again, you're going to get yours. Or going out there and doing like a Joey Logano and just taking it and kicking everyone's butt, finding a way to win one way or another. They don't really do that. They're just there. And that's fine and it works, but I would feel much more confident. Look, there's a handful of other drivers I feel much better about if we're assessing championship contenders than Chase Elliott, just because, like, it's great that you're there, but you better not stub your toe because you aren't going to have the points to help you overcome that.
Well, that's true. I mean, I don't think you can say he's not putting himself in position with consistent finishes in the sense that right now, if the regular season ended today, he would get 10 playoff points for finishing second in the standing. So, that's 2 races right there that he would get by having such a consistent season. So I don't think it's like just totally irrelevant and meaningless by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, he doesn't have enough. He's not piling them up. He needs more stage wins. He needs more wins. But if he keeps himself up there in the points, he's going to get a decent amount as well. So
he gets some, but I don't know if it's enough. And it's not either way. It's still, I think it's fair to say that this team is not fulfilling its potential. And it's great that they won, but winning 1 race last year, 0 races in 2023, and just 1 race right now, is that good enough for being?
I don't think anybody's arguing that, including Chase or his fans or anybody. Yeah. But let me throw this at you. And I'm not saying he's going to win the championship either. But what I'm saying is, tell me what happens in round 1 of these playoffs if you get 3 top 20 finishes, regardless of your playoff points.
Yeah,
you're in, right?
Just
all you have to do,
survive in advance,
which is exactly again, he has not finished outside the top 20 this season. So let's say he gets into round one of the playoffs and he has his consistent, solid performances. He advances regardless of if he has any or not. Then you get to round two. Well, suddenly the Roval's in there, right? Like there's, you look at, okay, well, I mean, this is,
I mean,
I know he hasn't been as good on road courses at all in the next gen car, but it's certainly a guy who has a ton of
he was
road
fast
courses.
in Mexico City too.
Yeah.
There isn't a track that, like, honestly, there isn't a track that Chase Elliott isn't capable of winning at. Like, I mean, this team is that level. I mean, they're good in intermediates. They're good everywhere. Like,
so then
really,
the playoff points don't. If you get in that situation, the playoff points don't matter. If you have to go win, but
don't feel like I don't have the confidence in them that they're ready to do that. I don't see them rolling off. Like, if this team has a bad race and they're in a points hole and they've got to go and win a race to advance, do you feel confident enough that they could do that? I don't.
No, I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but I mean, you look at, they won tonight, obviously, at Super Speedway. He was fifth at Pocono. He was third at Mexico City. He was sixth in the Coke 600. And then his bad days, like, again, Michigan, Nashville, I don't know if you call those bad days, he finished 15th. Kansas, 15th, Texas, 16th. So I just think that's a team that can actually make a little bit of a run. And then all you need to do in this system, as Logano has showed us, is win a race at the right time. And we could be talking about something different. So I just don't, do I have a lot of confidence? No, but at this time last year, would you have said you had a lot of confidence in Joey Logano doing that?
Yes, actually. Yes.
Okay. Well,
I know. I mean, I'm dead serious. Like, I mean, this, like, I mean, I said it. I mean, Nashville, like, this team gets in, they have the pedigree of, like, they just find a way. Like, Chase Elliott, this team does not find a way. Again, they have 0 stage wins this year. They've led less than 200 laps. Like, I mean, that's fine. And again, you're right. They absolutely can go back and they can go on a run. You go back to 2020, and the conversation that year about Chase Elliott in the playoffs was this team perennially in the playoffs stubs its toe. They always would find a way. Something would go wrong, or they couldn't overcome adversity. And it was, they just figured out a way to lose races and not win races. And that was their failure. And then in 2020, they went on that run, and I think they won 3 of 5 playoff races that year. And so, I mean, the point is, yeah, you can, flip a switch and the narrative can change really suddenly, but I'm just going off what I see. And at the end of the day, like, I just don't see a lot. The consistency is great. That's fantastic. But at very few moments this year do I look at them and go, man, these guys are on it.
Well, nobody's arguing that, but listen, it could have been a different story tonight as well without Alex Bowman, his teammate, given the assist. Brad Keselowski looked like he was in control of the race. As much as the lead was swapping back and forth, Keselowski had led the final 5 laps up until the white flag lap. At that point, coming to the white, Alex Bowman decides to line up behind Chase Elliott, his teammate, and give a big shot there, which Elliott used to sweep below Keselowski. It was too big of a run for Keselowski to block that at that time, and Elliott got the position. And then I was on Keselowski's in-car camera, so I was watching that live, and TJ Majors is saying, "Okay, now he got you, okay, but back up to Bowman, right?" Because as we've seen before, the great super speedway racers like Hamlin did in the Daytona 500 that one time, they say, "Okay, we still have time here. We're on the backstretch. Let me just back up to the car behind me. We'll get a run together," right? So instead of that happening, Keselowski's trying to do that. He's trying to back up to Bowman, and Bowman goes, "No. I'm not going to push you by my teammate. In fact, I'm going to try to get around you and make sure that we run side by side. I'll maybe get second, maybe not, but you're not going to get my teammate." So Bowman did, as Elliott said in the post-race press conference, 2 things there, right? Number one, he didn't race Elliott in the first place coming to the white flag, because Elliott said if they had gotten side by side, they would have just handed Keselowski the win on a silver platter, because he would have driven away from them had Bowman tried to make an issue of racing Chase. So Bowman knew that as Chase did, that the only chance for Hendrick to win the race was for them to go 2-on-1, team up, and then, try to make a move on Brad. And Elliott was in the position to do that. So Bowman was the good team player there. Obviously, it doesn't make Bowman feel any better necessarily because he needed a win, probably more than Chase did, to be honest, given his points position. But at the same time, that was how the cards had shaken out at that point. Bowman had gotten shuffled back from when he led with, I think, 9 to go. He'd led a couple laps at that point. So listen, I mean, he did the right thing. Keselowski, I don't really know what you do at that point. He was unable to block and he was at a disadvantage. He said he needed a teammate at the end. What was your take on that finish there?
Smart move by Bowman, made a really smart business decision because you don't want to be the guy who cost Hendrick Motorsports and Chevrolet a victory here. Can you imagine being the guy who cost Chase Elliott a victory at Atlanta?
Home track, yeah.
Yeah. Smart move. And it's tough for Brad because once he lost his teammate, he was vulnerable because it really kind of set up to be an RFK versus Hendrick showdown. And I'd throw Zane Smith in there too. And it seemed like Ford had the numbers. And Brad was so good tonight, man. Like this was like vintage Brad Keselowski, by the way. This reminded me so much of Brad's heyday with Penske. And like go back to 2014 playoff race at Talladega, that must-win race. And it was like he was just driving with determination, making big, bold, sweeping passes, aggressive blocks. Like it was just, this was like watching Brad 10 years ago. And in this situation, though, there was just nothing he could do. I mean, you could say, hey, I'm going to try to throw a block, and then maybe you stifle him, but it's a hard spot to be in. And it's a numbers game at the end of the day, and there's nothing you can do. And it's tough because you need the win. Like, it doesn't matter if you finish second. It really doesn't. And even afterwards, he's like, losing sucks, man. Like, it just stings. It's just, I came here to win, and considering the circumstances and everything, it's tough. And the reality is they're running much better, the 6 team. I mean, they were fast, last week at Pocono and put themselves in a position to maybe get a win. They're fast again tonight. They should be good at Indianapolis and maybe Dover as well. But you look at the schedule, and he's never won a road course race in the Cup Series before. And so you don't expect him to be a realistic guy who could win on a road course. Well, there's 3 of those left. So all of a sudden his chances to win is actually much smaller than a lot of other guys because of that. And so when you have an opportunity like this, or you have an opportunity like last week, you just, and they slip away from you. It's a stomach punch, times 2. And it's a tough situation to be in because you don't know if that opportunity is going to come around again. And RFK in general, it's like their cars have been fast. I mean, the 60 team with Ryan Preece, Chris Buescher's been fast. They have been really, really good this year. But the reality of the situation is they may get 1 in the playoffs. Maybe they sneak another one in, but they also could get 0 in, depending on how everything else, shakes out as well. That's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally agree with that. Well, Jordan, the funny thing about the crazy wreck, which is not funny for a lot of people, obviously tonight was the debut of the in-season tournament, the in-season challenge, and everybody had their brackets. Everybody had them ready to go. Jordan, you and I made picks, and we thought we put some effort into them. We tried to, look at what was realistic and all that stuff. Both of us, Jordan, on night 1 had 3 of our final 4 eliminated immediately.
Yep. I had my champion gone.
And your champion's gone. Our champions were head-to-head.
You should have taken me up on my bet, by the way.
So here's the thing, Jordan. As a result of how crazy this was, the Sweet 16 of this tournament has 1 race winner from this season who has survived, and that is Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott is the only person that has won a race who has made the Sweet 16. So none of the race winners the entire season have advanced past round one. If anybody has a perfect bracket after this for the NASCAR $1 million thing, I don't know how they were choosing. So you have some really wild. I mean, the upsets. It was upsets galore. Just to go through these and recap really quick. Denny Hamlin was defeated by Ty Dillon. The number 1 seed is out.
Mm-hmm.
Hamlin obviously got up in a wreck. And by the way, Ty Dillon, he didn't just not get in the wreck.
No.
He ended up finishing 8th.
Tonight.
Yeah. So now part of that was he did get a little bit of damage in the big wreck, but right before the big wreck, he'd gotten a penalty and he had to go to the back. So when the big wreck happened, he did spin as part of it, but the damage wasn't that severe. So obviously Hamlin went to the garage for 100 laps or something, came back for a little bit, gained a few spots, ended up finishing 31st, but he's eliminated from his own idea tournament. Brad Keselowski was matched up against Kyle Busch. He moved on. So, Keselowski obviously finished second, and Kyle Busch, he got caught up in that wreck too. Yep. He got damaged. He was never able to recover from. He finished 21st. So next week, Chicago, Ty Dillon versus Brad Keselowski. Jordan, what do you think?
Wow, I don't know. I mean, it's probably Brad just because, but it's still wild that either one of those guys who are both. I haven't looked at the updated point standings. Is Brad still 30th in points or whatever?
He moved up 3 spots to 27th.
Okay, so you're going to have a guy one driver who's high 20s, low 30s in points is going to be in your elite 8, which is wild. But I just want to say this is exactly what NASCAR intended. Like when they created this bracket and they put Atlanta as the first race, like we all thought, oh, okay. And this is exactly what happened. This is what they wanted.
I'll
not to the degree.
That's what I think. Yeah.
But not so far, but a good 3/4 of the way there.
I don't think they wanted to knock out almost every big name.
Not every big name, but a good number.
They wanted to have like a little chaos bomb for Team Chaos like yourself, where you take out, maybe 3 or 4 of the big seeds and you have some huge upsets, right? That's what they want to do. I don't think they wanted to take out like every big name driver because like, again, now the seedings was all messed up. We talked about that, but going through the points, right? Like, and we'll talk, I still want to go through the rest of these, but like William Byron's out, Kyle Larson's out, Denny Hamlin's out, Christopher Bell's out. Ryan Blaney's out, Ross Chastain's out. So like I just read 7 of the top 8 in points this year who are all out. So, I don't know that's how far they wanted to go with that, but this is what they did want. Yeah. Yeah. Moving on to the next matchup. Alex Bowman, the number 8 seed, defeated number 25 seed Joey Logano. Obviously Bowman was in contention late and Logano got in that wreck. And then Bubba Wallace, despite not having the best night, and he was in a caution as well, finished 2 laps down. He moves on. He defeats Daniel Suarez. Suarez was in my Final Four because Suarez got in the big wreck as well. So I thought Suarez was good at Atlanta, right? So I had him going on, and then I had him 2 road courses. So I thought, he could make it. But so now you're going to have Alex Bowman, Bubba Wallace next week at Chicago. Who you like there? Because
it's very apropos that it's Alex Bowman versus Bubba Wallace. Because go back a year ago, what happened at Chicago? Remember, Alex got into Bubba coming out of the pits, and Bubba was ahead of Alex at that time, and Bubba had to come back in. Like all of this, so it's kind of apropos there. I guess it's like a sequel, right? Bubba's really good but Bubba's much better in road courses than people give him credit for. I mean, he has really upped his game and put a lot of time and energy on this. But Bowman is really good as well. And I don't know. I'd probably just go
Chicago last year, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, and he's been, he almost won the at Coda a few years ago as well. I'd probably go Bowman, but it's a pick 'em.
Yeah, that one's a really tough call. I like Keselowski for the first one. Yeah. I probably would go with Bowman there for the next one. So John Hunter Nemechek it looked like he was going to be in contention for a little while, and he was, because he had survived that one wreck. But unfortunately, he got another incident, finished 19 laps down, but it was still enough for him to move on past Josh Berry, who did get in the big wreck.
Yep.
So the number 12 seed JHN gets by Berry, the number 21 seed, and then Chase Elliott, the number 5 seed, defeats Austin Dillon, the number 28 seed. So, John Hunter Nemechek has been, didn't he finish 6th at Mexico City or something
Mexico
too?
City. They've had speed in the
Now,
race cars, really.
He's facing Chase Elliott. So what do you do with John Hunter and Chase Elliott?
Yeah, to me, Chase is Chase. I'm going to go Chase there, but don't sleep on John Hunter.
Yeah, I have John Hunter in my Elite 8.
Yeah,
I believe
they've been running. People don't give enough credit, but he and Eric Jones have been running really well. Legacy, for as much grief as they've gotten, they've really turned the corner over the last 6, 7, 8 weeks.
I will stick with John Hunter because just since I already had it in my bracket and I already had this exact matchup, I think it would be stupid if I went back on it now since I, already put that out there. So I will go John Hunter. Meanwhile, Eric Jones was able to defeat Ross Chastain because Ross Chastain got up in that wreck. Eric Jones, the number 20 seed. And a big upset here. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. defeats Christopher Bell after Bell got in a wreck as well. And Stenhouse was in contention late in this race. Stenhouse looked great, by the way. Coming back, I think he was 2 laps down.
Yeah.
Then he got a penalty. He took fresh tires.
I thought he was going to win at one point.
I did too.
I really thought he was going to win.
So Eric Jones, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. At Chicago. I'm going to go Eric Jones on that one.
Yeah, Eric Jones. Stenhouse his forte is not road courses, so give me Jones.
Noah Gragson in one of the bigger upsets, the second biggest upset, literally. He was the number 31 seed. He knocks off number 2 seed Chase Briscoe. Meanwhile, Ryan Preece knocks off the regular season points leader William Byron. So it's a Gragson-Preece battle for the next round. I'll go Preece on that one at Chicago.
Same.
Now this is a good one. Hocevar defeated Ryan Blaney tonight, but when Blaney got in that wreck and Hocevar stuck around, Hocevar, despite being 2 laps down, finished 10th in this race, by the way.
It's wild that what they did.
They were fast. They were really fast. I would like to see what would happen.
Garage, during the red flag, and his car was there. And as soon as the red flag was lifted, the team just swarmed on it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, they're in the garage, they're doing repairs. And I look at it. Honestly, it didn't look like that damage. I was like, oh, why are they even here? And then didn't think anything of it, to be honest with you. And then I don't know, like 10, 15 laps later, I'm like, oh, he's back on the track. Oh, he's back on the lead lap too. It was wild.
So, we talked about the aforementioned matchup of our champions. I have Reddick winning it all. You had Larson. Larson with his damage was never able to get back up there. Reddick
taking me up on the bet.
23 seed. What were you talking about?
You put something out there on social media about, our champions are going head to head. And I said, let's make a bet. And you never followed up.
Okay, Jordan, here's the thing. We don't even know what the bet is for we can't even decide after 18 races this year what our good race bowl bet is.
We could have done dinner. We could have done drinks. We could have done anything.
We won't expense that.
I know, like the rule is the other person has to pay, no expensing it.
Well, I'm not going to do that.
Okay. The point is, we could have come up with something. It's not.
I don't think we could have. What's our bet for the good race poll then?
I don't know.
See?
I haven't thought about that, but I would have thought about something. Chasm actually thought of a good idea for you for what if I would have lost, what I would have had to do. So.
Well, anyway, Reddick moves on, and so now you have Reddick Hocevar at Chicago. I will pick Reddick because I have winning the whole thing. So yeah. Now this is potentially the best matchup of round 2 because AJ Allmendinger knocked off Michael McDowell. I had McDowell in the Final 4 for this very reason. I just thought he would get through super speedway, win 2 road courses, and move on through 2 road courses. But that wasn't the case. Allmendinger defeated McDowell. And then Ty Gibbs defeated Justin Haley. So you have an Allmendinger-Gibbs matchup at Chicago. Juicy.
I'm gonna go Ty Gibbs. He's really good in these races.
I know.
And Chicago, Allmendinger hasn't been like lights. It's not his best road course.
Ty Gibbs, again, just going back a couple weeks ago to Mexico City, it was Ty Gibbs and SVG. Like Ty Gibbs was going to be the only one that had something for SVG. So
and he's got Gabehart on his box now, calling strategy for the next foreseeable future.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick because the race started and I can't remember the Ty Gibbs fan account that often tweets about his stuff. It's like 54 updates or something like that. They're like, hey, just to let you know, Gabehart's crew chiefing tonight for Ty Gibbs. So I checked with the PR for Joe Gibbs Racing on that. And the answer was, well, Tyler Allen is still the crew chief, but Chris Gabehart is now doing some race strategy stuff.
Race strategy.
Yeah. So that's obviously, that's kind of an IndyCar style arrangement, you would say. Somebody just calls race strategy. But Chris Gabehart was in his ear talking about the strategy tonight, all that kind of stuff. So what do you make of that, Gabehart, on the pit box?
I mean, Gabehart is a phenomenal crew chief. I mean, he's one of the absolute best in the garage. And when you have 3 of your 4 teams already in the playoffs, there's obviously going to be an added focus on getting that 4th one in. And you have a first-year crew chief in Tyler Allen. And let's be honest, there was 2 races very recently at Michigan and at Mexico City where strategy was a question. And so if that's an area where you maybe feel like you could be a little bit stronger in and you've got Gabehart just there, I get it. It sucks for the crew chief because that's part of the role, a big part of the role, but this is a business, and this is the reality situation is. And if you've got Gabehart there, I get it. And it's not a permanent thing. It's just for the next, I think it's fair to say, the regular season, probably.
Finally, the last matchup, the only matchup aside from the Eric Jones Stenhouse one, where both drivers tonight actually like raced their way into the top 10, raced their way through it without the other person having some sort of trouble or something. I believe it's the only other one. Zane Smith defeated Austin Cindric after Cindric had, an incident. He was in the big one. And then Chris Buescher defeated Todd Gilliland. So Zane Smith and Chris Buescher both, let's see, Zane ended up 7th. He was in contention to win. And Buescher ended up 9th. He was in contention to win tonight. So I like Buescher on road courses, though, obviously.
Same. Zane Smith is having a really quietly solid season, by the way.
I mean, he's 25th in points. By the way, one thing I did want to mention when we were talking earlier, I forgot to mention on the Gregson one. Gregson actually lost a spot tonight in points, falling to 33rd in points while advancing to the next round of the in-season tournament by defeating the number 2 seed. Like, he beat the number 2 seed while losing a spot in points to 33rd.
Yeah.
Like, what a wacky thing this is. But anyway, look, I get the some people, I see your mentions. I see the comments. Not everybody loves the in-season tournament. Not everybody wanted me to talk about it. People were, salty in the mentions, but again, to me, it's just something fun to talk about. And I think it's what the biggest thing to remember here. You're always talking about, we have ads for FanDuel on here and stuff like that, right? Like, this is going to bring in casual bettors who the only thing they have to bet on at this time of the year. The NBA finals just wrapped up, NHL finals wrapped up. You just got baseball, regular season baseball. And so for NASCAR to be able to be like, all right, here is like agreed upon head-to-head matchups that we are getting a high profile in a bracket style thing. It's not the people that have to enter the pool. It's like, hey, here's something that could get the casual sports bettor involved, and it doesn't actually affect the race. So like, it's fine. Okay. Like if you're not into it, it's fine, but it's just something to talk about. I personally like it. I enjoy it. So, it's not going to, and it's going to be less and less now. There's only 8 matchups coming up this weekend. It's going to shrink and shrink. Right. So it's fine. That's my opinion. I mean, what do you think?
It's fine. I mean, I'm not offended by it. It doesn't change fundamentally any part of the racing. it's fine. It really doesn't bother me at all. It's not. It really doesn't catch my interest because it's not like these teams are going into it like, oh my goodness, hey, where are we at today? Now we'll see what it's like when there's only 4 drivers left or there's a championship, and we'll see how much the teams are really. I'm curious to see what they're like there, but it's fine. It's not doing anything. It's not hurting anybody.
Well, I think before I move on from this, I do think that because we had briefly touched on this last week, I do think now the lack of big names sets us up to actually be a nice little secondary storyline when we get to a place like Dover or Indy, because you're going to have some very non-traditional names that make it through or something that aren't even in the playoffs. Obviously, because like there's only one winner in this group, right? So, I think it's going to be a spotlight on people that don't usually get it. Yeah. I would think. And so it'll be nice. It's not going to, they're probably not even being in contention for the win, but anyway, we'll move on. TNT, their coverage debuted tonight. The really cool opening thing with Ludacris. I know you're probably out on the grid. I don't know if you had a chance to see it.
I did not see it. I have a bookmark, but I have not seen it yet.
Dude, it was pretty sick because they had like a full like cinematic opening with him driving around in a car, and then a really cool like highlight package underneath, and then they had Move, Get Out the Way playing, but like an orchestral version of it, like with like strings or something going, and it like made it sound like dramatic, like dun 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 dun. So that was pretty cool. Like they put some effort into that. For me, the TNT broadcast overall, I mean, it was the same booth as Prime. And aside from the full screen commercials and stuff, which now you're like, oh man, I missed that already with Prime. But like, I thought, it was okay. It was good. I think if we hadn't just come off of Prime's coverage,
bar is so high.
Yeah, it would have been like, if you'd just gone normally like, oh, here's TNT's coverage, and you'd be like, oh, wow, this is great. Okay, awesome. I think Prime set a sort of impossible standard to live up to. But it had elements of like they had a really, really long post-race show, it felt like. And they had a good booth, and it was an exciting race, and the coverage was fine. So, I mean, it's almost like Prime Light in a way. I don't know if that's insulting to them, but it was fine. I was happy with it.
I didn't pay super close attention tonight because there's a lot of other stuff going on. What I saw, listen, Adam, Steve, and Dale are so good in the booth, and especially in a race like this when you've got Dale, who's arguably one of the very best, super speedway racers ever, and strategy calls or anything like that. No one's better than Letarte. So, and Adam is great, and so that is great. What I heard, they seemed fine. I don't know, but to your point, 100%. Anybody who followed Prime it's really hard to fulfill that expectation.
Well, you wrote about Prime's coverage on The Athletic this week. So you went to Pocono just to do that, and got a nice feature story out of that. So make sure to check that out on The Athletic this week. Also, I want to make sure that everybody knows that the 12 questions podcast version is no longer behind the paywall at The Athletic. It is now free. We've had a change in policy at The Athletic where we were putting The Athletic only podcasts on The Athletic app, so they weren't living in like a feed. And so ever since you and I came to Dirty Mo, and the 12 questions used to be in the overall teardown feed, but when we came to Dirty Mo, that's The Athletic's property, so we can't put that in there. But what The Athletic has done now is they've created a separate podcast feed for the 12 questions. That's the only thing that's going to be on the feed. So if you want to go check that out, I had Ryan Blaney this week. Chase Elliott is the one coming up next week. So
timely.
Yeah, that works out. And then SVG is coming up after that. So it's just on a normal podcast feed. I think it'll be out every Wednesday or Thursday, and these are only 15 or 20 minute interviews. But if anybody's interested in checking it out, I think you just search for the 12 questions on podcast feed, and you should be able to find it. Of course, would love for you to subscribe to The Athletic as well, where the written version is and where all of our articles are. And also, don't forget to go to.
Don't be like Ryan Blaney and don't subscribe to The Athletic. Subscribe to The Athletic.
I mean, he should be able to afford it.
That's why I told him. He's like,
all the time.
He asked, "Can I get a discount?" I'm like, "We got like dollar deals all the time." He's like, "We got
it's like $1 a month or something."
Yeah, and I'm like, "Yes, we can do dollar deals." Like, "Oh, I could do that." And I'm like, "Oh, yes, you can do that."
I hope
Ryan.
so.
Yes,
I hope so. And also, don't forget to go to shop.dirtymomedia.com because that is where you can have a nice hat. Like, Joey Logano was showing off his Dale Jr. gloves tonight on the in-car. Here's me showing off my hat that you can buy. I haven't seen people wear the actual teardown merch to tweet ups yet. They've only worn your lemonade shirt,
which
I see the Jordan lemonade shirts.
So what I'm hearing is like, it's fair to say I'm probably the breakout star of the podcast. Like I have my own merch. People wear my own merch. Like,
right. That's very annoying. I don't have anything me specific. So the
sidekick usually doesn't get their own merch, Jeff. That's just the way it is. I'm sorry to tell you this, but people aren't clamoring for Robin merchandise. They want the Batman merchandise.
Wow. Well, Nick Sanchez is no longer anybody's Robin because he has won his first career Xfinity Series race. Really nice story for Big Machine as well.
Yes.
What did you think of Sanchez finally breaking through there and winning that race at Atlanta?
Yeah, really cool for that team has been really, really close. We know how, Parker Kligerman's driven for them for the last few years, and we know Parker, Roval and, a few other places, like they've been due. And they've won a race before. People forget this. They won it with Tyler Reddick a few years ago at Texas. We talk a lot about Connor Zilic and Corey Heim, understandably so. I mean, we're talking about NASCAR's great young talents. We tend to overlook Nick Sanchez a little bit, probably because he doesn't have the gaudy resume.
He hasn't won a Xfinity race yet.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have the gaudy resume, Well, I mean, there's Corey Heim, really. I mean, but my point is, like, he still has a lot of talent, and it just sometimes gets overlooked a little bit. And he hasn't driven for like a big team, I mean, he isn't driving for a powerhouse in any of the series he's been in. But he does do a really good job. And you talk to people in the garage and they think he's very, very talented. And so good to see him get that win. You can see he's kind of getting his feet underneath him a little bit. They were fast a few times this year. He, almost won at Rockingham earlier this year and got caught up in a wreck that wasn't his own doing. And you can see this team kind of coming together a little bit. So it's good for them to finally, punch through and get that W. Well,
speaking of Corey Heim, Lime Rock, I thought it was really cool to see the crowd there. Looks like, NASCAR went to Connecticut, went to a new place, and as seems to happen when they go to a new location, the fans show up that have been sort of starved for racing in their area. Not that you can't get any racing around there, but it's not necessarily super local, right in your backyard. So that was cool. Looked like a really cool track. I've never been there. The race was pretty much a clunker of a race. But Corey Heim finally finishes one off after it's like he just he should have won probably 10 races this year. It feels like he's won 5, I think. But here's my thing, Jordan. And maybe I'm just making too big of a deal out of this.
Probably.
He was going to lead every lap of this race. He was going to do the perfect race that we talked about William Byron possibly doing at Darlington this year. He restarted with 5 laps to go as the race leader, right? So he's leading in the restart zone. Before they get to the start-finish line, from the restart zone to the start-finish line, Lane Riggs pulls ahead because it's not about beating the leader to the line.
Yeah.
You have to let the leader fire first. So that happened. Corey Heim fired first. Lane Riggs got a better restart. And he technically crossed the line first on that restart before Heim. But then Heim still immediately passed him back and led that lap. The lap led was then credited to Lane Riggs. So the box score says that Corey Heim led 199 out of 100 laps. is that really the definition of a lap led? The guy restarted as the leader and led the lap. He never lost the lead except from the restart zone to the line. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, I get it, and I get. I mean, Lane Riggs did beat him to the scoring line, though, and that is technically how you lead the lap, is beating someone to the scoring line. So,
that's
I
a
don't
weird
know.
one, because the leader he restarted as the leader and he kept the lead, but just in a very brief moment where they were jockeying. I don't know.
But if you beat someone to the line, you theoretically, I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't bother me. It is what it is. It makes sense. Whatever.
Well, it bothers me in the sense that we were going to see the first perfect race in the Truck Series since 1997.
Yeah.
The first time that anybody had led every lap, and then he did lead the lap. It felt like he never lost the lead against essentially. So whatever. But anyway, nice for Corey Heim.
We'll have to figure out a way to go on, and it's going to be hard, and we'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Right. Well, it was weird. I just thought that was weird. All right. Well, Jordan, I've been putting this off, but Big Joe Walls informed me that you have now won 3 straight Good Race Poll contests. My lead's completely evaporated. I was up 10-6. If I just gone up 11-6, it would have been almost insurmountable. But now it's 10-9. So I am in a big slump. I don't have the pulse of the people anymore. I don't know what the fans are thinking anymore. And so I guess I've lost my touch here.
Yep.
So this is obviously going to be really high. I'm not going to share my thoughts on how high it's going to be yet. I'll go into that afterwards. But are you ready to share your poll guess?
Sure. Hang on 1 second here.
Okay. I think I have mine.
All right. I'm ready.
Okay. Ready, go.
94.5.
Okay, 94.5, and I said 93.8. So 93.8 for me, 94.5 for you. Now so Atlanta, the 3 wide finish last spring with Suarez was 94.8.
Okay.
That is the highest super speedway race ever in the Good Race Poll. The 2020 Talladega Spring won by Blaney, 94.3. When we were all in lockdown. That was the second highest one. But other than that, super speedway races hardly ever. I think there's only one other one in the 90% club. Two other ones, something like that. Anyway, so obviously I think this will be really high, but I'm also worried about people who either, their driver got taken out in the big one. They think, well, that's stupid. I don't know. I just 94% is a really high standard to achieve. So I just want 1 percentage point lower than the 94.8. That's why I said 93.8. So why'd you go 94.5?
Phenomenal race. Much better than it was a year ago. Phenomenal last 30 so laps. And then look at who won this race. NASCAR's most popular driver in his home state. And by the way, I don't know if it came across on television or not, but did you hear the reaction to Chase when he got out of his car? I mean, it was ginormous. I mean, it was loud, like to the point I had to turn around. I in my head, I'm like, is there a fight or something going on? Because it was like that kind of reaction almost. And I'm like, oh no, Chase won. It was loud. And so Chase winning, phenomenal race, great finish. Yeah, I think I think this is going to do very, very, very well. And there were people, I was walking back from pit road, were stopping me, and they're like, this is 99, man. This is 99. I'm like, it's not going to be 99. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be 99.
That's right. Keep feeding Jordan the incorrect information so he guesses too high. I hope that's what happened this week, that people were telling you 99 and you thought to yourself, you know what, I won't go that high, but I'll go 94 and it'll fall right into my
No,
range and
I
more
had my number.
realistic.
I had my number already in my head. Like,
Oh, right. You're not swayed by whatever people tell you at all, are you?
oh, I mean, this was clearly mid. I mean, this is clearly going to be in mid 90s. Like what, whether it's 93, 94, whatever, it's clearly. And a part of me wonders if Kansas was the highest race ever in the good race poll, right? Last
Yeah.
year. Part of me wonders if this is going to challenge that. I'm serious. This was a.
You think it's going to be over 95.8?
I mean,
That's the highest ever.
This was a great race.
What about the people that are going to vote just because they don't like the in-season challenge or something? Are there going to be anybody like that?
Yeah, I mean, probably, and that's why this poll is so stupid. But, and so you can't. I mean, so you don't like the in-season. It didn't impact anything about tonight's race, and so you didn't like that. You didn't like that they had this thing that going on the side that people were kind of interested in. Okay, cool. This was a phenomenal race. I really genuinely, when I was like putting my mind together, I'm like, I would not be shocked if this passes Kansas. I really wouldn't. Like this was what genuine criticism do you have? Oh, it's a drafting race. Like, okay, but I don't know. This was good. This was really, really good.
Oh, NASCAR's best track, Atlanta. After we said this was stupid.
It is. I mean, it's in the top 2 or 3. And we've talked about, think about this. We hype up Kansas so much on this podcast, right?
I know.
And the last few races at Kansas they've been good. They haven't been great. But
it's like I said all along. What a genius move this was to turn this into a super speedway. It was never in doubt. It's never in doubt, Jordan.
All
right. Well,
Marcus Smith deserves a lot of credit for this because there were so many people that were slinging arrows.
Is this the best Marcus Smith move ever? Better than the Roval? Better than the revival of North Wilkesboro?
I think we look at the Roval differently now. We got to remember, like in 1819, like people were pretty jacked about the Roval.
Yeah.
Like that was what this has done is this has staying power. The Roval didn't have staying power. The Bristol Dirt didn't have staying power. I will take that back. I don't know how you feel about North. Are we throwing North Wilkesboro in there? Because North Wilkesboro is pretty cool too.
Yeah, I mentioned it. Yeah.
And so I mean, this is pretty ingenious. I mean, it's either here or probably North Wilkesboro or between the two. How you feel about it. I'd probably North Wilkesboro just because that place was a dump that should have been condemned. And nobody.
This is pretty.
This is pretty.
Yeah.
But I just keep thinking back to when you and I were both here in July 2021 and they announced it and the reaction, the vitriol.
Oh, the drivers were so pissed.
Drivers, fans. Honestly, let's be honest too. There were some people on the NASCAR side too, who are like, "Are we really doing this? Like, really?" And there was just a lot of hand wringing of like, "Oh my God, we don't need more of these races. Is this going to happen in Texas?" And it's like, damn, man, this is great. I don't want more races like this. This is a good number, but this is really, really good.
Man. Never been so wrong, and I've been wrong a lot.
Well, you've been wrong a lot. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of times when you've been really, really wrong.
Top 5, me being wrong.
Oh, I gotta put together. I'm gonna have to.
A long list.
I gotta pour myself a drink and think about this one for a while.
Yeah.
I don't, Joey. You completely dismissing Joey Logano's championship hopes last year is probably still my favorite.
That's revisionist history. So. All right. Everybody. Oh, sorry. Do you have anything else that was on your list?
Not that I immediately come to mind now.
Okay. Chicago next week.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. We'll be reunited in person.
Year 3.
So I will see you there.
Yeah.
And everybody, thanks as always for listening. Thanks for staying up late with us. And we will talk to you next time on the Teardown. See you, everybody.